All right, good morning, guys. Bonjour tout le monde. Guten Morgen alles. Today we're going to be going over a brief about Providence and really NRDS, the conflict and the culture of the region. It's a very diverse group. It's been around for over 15 years. It's been a part of Eve lore and history, and so it is an honor and a privilege to be able to be here today to speak about that. Myself, in life, my name is Kyle Saltz. I was a counterintelligence agent for 11 years. Did some military contracting. Currently, I'm in a paramilitary law enforcement agency that protects special nuclear material at one of the Manhattan Project's locations in Hanford, Washington. I have a couple master's degrees, graduate of the Defense Language Institute, and also the commander for the local Veterans of Foreign Wars Post 7952 in Richland, Pasco, and I'm also sit on the city council board over in Pasco. So I have a lot of things. I do Eve, and this is a region that's near and dear to my heart. So going over the thing we're going to talk about is the different groups that adhere to NRDS. It's not just Provi. There's a lot of very diverse, very different groups that adhere to NRDS. And we're going to ask also why NRDS. Because I've found out over talking to the different groups that adhere to NRDS that each group has its own reasoning, reason why they actually do NRDS, which is not read, don't shoot. The world of Eve mainly goes with MBSI, MPSI. We're very unique in our null region, why this is one of the only regions that you could find that does that. We're going to go wrap up that. Then we're going to go into the current conflict that's been going on for about 22 months. It's probably one of the longer standing conflicts, but probably less talked about. Then we're going to go into the culture, RP community, and just wrap it up and ask questions. All right, the first real large group that ever adhered to NRDS was the Confederation of Free Stars. It was located in Delve, in Quarrius. The big issue with them, this was back early 2004, 2005 timeframe. The big issue with them was they didn't care who owned SOV. They allowed everyone come in. It was a very loose coalition or confederacy, if you will. And that's what bit them in the end, was because the people that came in, moved in, that started taking SOV, they said, hey, we're not going to adhere to this policy anymore. And it literally overthrew a lot of the groups out of there. CVA was also a part of that. Wasn't the major contributor, but it was a minor one. And then when they left, they went back to the Empire, and they started actually focusing on domain. Now, Matar is a Matar group. It's a loyalist group, an amazing, flushed out RP community, really good people, but they're in NRDS. And it's a Matar loyalist. Everyone usually thinks of NRDS as a Provi thing. No, there's a large groups. And it's also a Matar group, and with them, their main reasoning behind NRDS is they're anti-piracy, they're protecting the tribal lands, and it's who do we shoot and why? That was their main reasoning behind NRDS for them. And for Providence, we have a large group, CVA, APOC, COG, Severance, et cetera, et cetera. We have a lot of smaller groups as well. We're Amarr loyalists, and we adhere to this policy. Now, I'm trying to go a little quicker. I realized I had a shorter time frame. Now, in conclusion, what you get is, for us, for Provi, we are trying to mimic the laws of the Amarr Empire. So if you go to the Amarr Empire and you're a known criminal, terrorist, the Amarr forces are going to try to kill you. Well, same as with our region. We have a cost checker, which is very robust. We actually have forums outside the game in which you can actually check your own name, if you want to Google it, and find out if you are cost to our region. And everyone talks about the great blue donut. Well, unfortunately, our donut's very red. So there's no lack of content in our area. And so for us, it was about keeping the Amarrian laws for our region. For Matar, it's their reasoning behind why do we shoot or who do we shoot and why. And that's kind of sums up, in essence, a little bit of not read, don't shoot, and while trying to speed up the brief. Now, for us, we had a major invasion at the start of December 2017. the conflict's been going on since, like I said, 22 months. That was when the faction Fortizar changes happened, when PL and CDOT tried to cash in on that. And the original, like I say, loose coalition they formed with that was Honorable Third Party, Arton, Purple Helmeted Warriors, and those were the main antagonists, if you will, of the invasion. Now, after about 4 to 6 months, Legacy would eventually step in on Pravi's side, and we did a counter-offensive, which reconquered majority of the land. And on top of that, PL eventually would have to retreat from the region with NC-DOT, and they didn't take a single faction Fortizar with them. Now, that being said, Honorable Third Party and TRC was able to snag 2 as they were trying to unanchor, and they also destroyed 2. So give props to them, and I think one of them was very funny. Honorable Third Party they said, hey, we promise you that we will not stop you from unanchoring your faction Fortizar. And Legacy was like, okay, roger that. And so I think TRC came in and destroyed it. So that was, and Honorable Third Party's like, yeah, we made a promise. We weren't going to take it, but not them. So that was good on them. That was well played. Now, what we have today is you have Wrecking Crew, which over time, more entities have started to join them. And you see the top left, you see Honorable Third Party, Purple Helmeted Warriors, you see Arton, and then you also see the development of a new group, which we see as the Rogue Consortium. And those guys, they're kind of near and dear to me. These guys, a lot of them are former Pravi guys. They started in Care Factor. They didn't like how their leadership was going on. They eventually left. They tried to be a blue entity within Pravi. They got a bad rap. I admit that. And they would go under a silent affinity space, which that would later be kicked out by PL. They left, went into some Renner space for a while. They thought they would be nice there, but unfortunately, that's when Fraternity and Legacy had a war. They got kicked out of there, went back to LoSec, and then they kind of formed the Rogue Consortium and joined a Wrecking Crew. And it's also a lesson for us in Pravi about bad diplomacy. If we don't give someone a good deal, if we don't, honor our own pledges, it's a lesson learned. And for those guys, hey, I consider them Pravi, but they're on the wrong side of the field. But then next up, you have Templars. Now, Templars is a very strange. They're supposed to be Caldari loyalists, Templars Calcif. They have a lush history in the Caldari RP community, and unfortunately, we're supposed to be allies. But in the pursuit of content, they joined Wrecking Crew, and their FC it actually runs about over 90% of all Wrecking Crew's fleets against us. So it's funny how a Caldari militia aligned group is actually fighting against supposed allies. It happens. Next up is Waffles. Waffles came in very briefly. They did leave. They didn't really enjoy the content of the area. They found some other areas and outlooks. Next up, it's Ancients, but I consider it wrapped up under Spectre Fleet. Spectre Fleet announced their invasion. Later, it's also crumbled. We'll get to that later on, and some of the Reddit posts that happened within the last 24 hours, which has been kind of humorous. Next up, above that, is Aegis Militia. They are actually an Amarr loyalist group, and this is it kind of hurt me near and dear because I love Amarr. I love the Amarrian loyalist outline, and these guys probably should be our allies as well. Unfortunately, they wanted to join up with Wrecking Crew against us, and it's sad to see when Amarrian loyalists fight each other, but it happens. Above that, Siege Green, a former ally of ours. We did some ops with each other. We supported each other. And they joined up with Wrecking Crew. The original issue was they were in a war and snuffed out, reinforced most of their citadels. And seeking help, they went to Wrecking Crew. That was what they officially said. Talking with some of them over in Korea, for my Korean friends, 안녕하세요, 감사합니다, for the information you guys told me. Some of them are actually telling me that they are being paid to join Wrecking Crew. So that's an interesting development. I don't know for a fact, but that's what some of the Siege Green guys are talking about. Finally, Fed Up, which is actually in Legacy. It's strange. Talked to some of those guys, and they said that they will be joining Wrecking Crew to fight against us. They've already fought in some engagements. It's strange. It doesn't make sense that a Legacy organization would join Wrecking Crew to kill us, but in the pursuit of content, it's understandable. It happens. And it's also wondering how that will develop in the future. Now, the Spectre Fleet invasion. Now, what they originally said was it was not purple, shoot it. They were going to have this great invasion of Provi, and it was going to be all about good fights. But if we look at their manifesto, if you look at their very constitution of what they said, because they're going on talking stations, they're saying, oh, we're here for good fights. We're just here for good fights. But, okay, I used to track and neutralize terrorist cells around the world. And some of these groups portray themselves as humanitarian organizations. They put on a front. They say different things in one place, and then they actually do something else. So if we look at their very manifesto of their invasion, this is what they said. Soon your sovereignty will be contested, your structures reinforced, and your region set ablaze, until finally your keepstar stands and falls as the last bastion of hope in the smoke-filled NRDS wasteland of your own destruction. We will attempt to clear Providence of all official claims by the current holders. Now, that doesn't sound like good fights. That sounds like they're absolute genocide of our region and our way of life of NRDS and Providence. So while I might overthink it, we took it very seriously, because anyone that says that they want to destroy you and everything you stand for, we're going to take that very seriously. So also with this onset, we've changed some things in Provi. Previously, we were never allowed to have red alts. We were supposed to be straight up, all your alts are within our coalition. Now, in order with this new age, in order to help fight against the current war that we've had, we've stepped up. We've loosened a lot of our regulations and procedures. So in order to act acts of sabotage, espionage, and theft, we've actually allowed red alts. And so with Spectre Fleet, we've done an amazing job at having sleepers in their fleets. We've also made a policy that we will headshot every single FC in Spectre Fleet, because we do not want them to have good content. We don't want them to have fun, because when they're continuing to say that they're going to try to destroy our way of life, we will make sure your experience in Provi is absolutely horrible. Now, if you want good fights, we'll give you guys good fights any day. But until they finally, well, they kind of crumbled on that, but until they actually admitted they weren't going to do that anymore, we were going to make their life miserable, which is why we've actually took control of their fleets before and warped them to an ambush, murdered everyone except the FC, let them go. We've also had people inside their fleets. We've pointed the FCs in leadership, had the rest of the fleet warp away, and we actually took the FC and his team hostage, and we actually took his monitor. We have it today. So that's the type of stuff that we were doing to Spectre Fleet. We were doing it on purpose, because you threaten our way of life, we will make your experience here not fun. And Provi is known to giving good content. And we want to give good content. We want to give good fights. We want to undock. And that's the way it should be. But recently, Spectre Fleet admitted that it's kind of crumbled. They're no longer doing that. They've had some internal issues, which, yeah, they've changed the policy on Provi, which is outstanding. Hey, we hope to work with them in the future to provide good fights. While they were invading us, it wasn't a true MPSI fleet. As I said, they were being hijacked. And MPSI means not purple, shoot it. However, you don't have blues on grid when you're MPSI. Strange, but yes, they had blues on grid. And what's even more strange is what finally was leaked between Wrecking Crew leadership conversations, in which they confirmed again on Reddit, was that they were using Spectre Fleet to wear out our EU time zone. So in US time zone, our EU guys wouldn't want an alarm clock. So they were just being used as a tool for Wrecking Crew to wear us down in our battles. Okay, outstanding. Also, I found, which was quite disturbing, was their illegal use of Eve Uni students in their wars, which found that out, kind of called it out, because Eve Uni students are not allowed to take SOV or structure bash. In order to boost numbers, Spectre Fleet was using Eve Uni students to do illegal operations and just tell them, hey, just don't shoot the structure. Or we just randomly happen to show up at this exact timer on grid. Okay, roger that. All right, but so far as it stands right now, it's crumbled. Provi endures, And we continue on. Now, they've also used mercenary forces. As I said, Siege Green, it's unknown. I've had several Koreans, which, hey, I love Korean food, so I like to talk to the Koreans, and my Korean is horrible, but I try. So some of them are saying they're being paid, which is why they alarm clock at 3, 4 a.m., and they have a large fleet. That's outstanding. You want an alarm clock at 3, 4 a.m., and they pull the numbers they do? That's outstanding. But there's also had Nol Sek Naya Shalupin, forgive me if I butcher that name, as well as Shadow Cartel, which they called in favors and to help about the same time that Spectre Fleet was coming in. And it was also probably help safeguard their Satoya they put up. On top of that, which was going back to Spectre Fleet, I do apologize. They announced the other day that PL was actually paying Spectre Fleet to invade us, which strange that I think it was Rocket X or Redline said that. It's strange that they would admit that. It doesn't sound right, honestly. To me personally, it doesn't sound right that PL would want to pay someone to come invade us. They could just do it themselves. So even with them saying it, I'm hesitant to confirm that, but I knew there is some outside influences in the region. Enemy Batfoons, as always, there's going to be NC Dot, which comes down a lot. Horde, P-Horde always comes down. They're always looking for a fight. They're good guys. Well, bad guys, but they're good people. And then you always have PL. Now, for us, we have goons sometimes. We have legacy members sometimes. We have initiative sometimes. And it's really, the issue is with our region, is probably makes great neighbors. We don't care about anyone else's SOV or structures around the world. We only care about our own region. So we are a stable neighbor of content. And that's what they all see, because if we fall, the end result would be a pandemic, Northern Pandemic, whatever they want to call themselves, aligned organization in control of Provi. And that might be an issue for a lot of these other groups. And that's why some of these guys will come and bat phone every once in a while, because ultimately they realize that we're not the enemy, and we're pretty stable partners. All right, other conflicts of the region is also, as I said, we have three major conflicts in the region, which goes hot and cold cycles. So you have Tactical Supremacy and Watchmen. During the Provi legacy counteroffensive of our region, Tactical Supremacy decided to invade Provi instead and try to take SOV and destroy billions in structures. That stems from a long-standing hatred. A lot of them are former Provi. They got rubbed the wrong way, some of them over 10 years ago. And they still have that anger. And it's unfortunate as a Diplo. I try to give everyone a fair deal. But it's hard to say, hey, listen, I'm sorry what happened 5 years ago. Like with Aegis Militia, a guy lost a frigate 5 years ago, and he wants to lead a crusade against us. I'm like, I am sorry you lost a frigate 5 years ago and you're angry about it, but I can't fix that. Or with some of the Diplo issues with Tactical Supremacy. Ultimately, the goal for Tactical Supremacy is they want the QBL pocket, or PI5, more specifically. That's a source of content for them. Now, usually with most legacy groups, we have a, not an official agreement, but we don't mess with each other's SOV. We don't mess with each other's structures. But it's been an on and off war with them. When they got diverted to the Fraternity War, we were able to take back our SOV, which usually if we were trying to take back our SOV in the QBL pocket, Wrecking Crew would come down and assist them in killing us while we were trying to take our home back in the QBL pocket. The QBL pocket is also famous for, it was the only region that PL was never able to take all of the faction Fortizars. It actually held out there. So that was also another region that we made a fall back to during that conflict because it is a natural defensive position. And it was mainly defended by a new group that's joined us, Coalition Hispania. They used to be a neutral group. They worked themselves up to a blue status. And they gained a lot of SOV over there because their extraordinary sacrifice to keeping the QBL pocket away from PL. And for that, they were given a lot of the SOV there. And they took a horrendous losses, but they maintained those structures, which is amazing. Now, currently, well, during that time, also when we were trying to retake our land, Tactical Supremacy and Watchmen would actually execute fellow Legacy members that were flying with us. We would do joint fleets against PL and their allies, and Tactical Supremacy would request, hey, can you sign us in? They sign in caps, stuff like that. They would immediately turn their guns on us, kill us. If any brave or Requiem Internal guys would have issues with that, they also executed them as well. So that was a lot of issues that happened with that conflict. But moving forward, we're braced with the fraternity war ending. Tactical Supremacy might come after the QBL pocket. We know this. We put up a keep star on QBL, and we are prepared if they ever want to help defend our region. As always, Pravi endures. We've also talked with Watchmen. We've actually negotiated with them as well, and to try to have more understanding. We cut off diplomatic relations with those guys for many years, and we're actually having positive relations with these guys anymore now, mainly because we understand that we want to be better neighbors with each other. Now, Simple Farmers is another organization that just won't die. There are some tough guys, and they are exterminated many times by Legacy, and they just keep coming back. They keep putting the structures down. Good on them. They've invaded our area, DTAC G, TR. They put up structures. Originally, there was large cat battles back when they first went in there, dropping Titans as well. Nowadays, we've pushed a lot of those structures out, destroyed them. Currently, Pravi is focused on them. We're going to try to reignite that conflict and wipe out a lot of their structures that's in Pravi. We've already started doing that. And as I said, it has hot and cold cycles. They won't be around. We'll destroy all their structures, and all of a sudden you'll see 10 structures go up in one system. So that's another conflict that, it happens in our region. Now, as you can see, if you go to the bottom right, my left, your right, that is the QBL pocket. That is the area that is very interested by Tactical Supremacy. That region, there hasn't been any issues. They do have structures up in one of the areas, and it's an AU time zone, Aussie time zone. So it's very hard to do, time zone tank against Australians when you're primarily a EU, US time zone group. That middle area, that blue, what you see, that is the area where I was talking about simple farmers in that little region. And I've always, the top northeast of the map, if you will, that's where you have that red line was the original fallback point. Because at the highest extent, PL only conquered half of the region of Providence. They literally set ablaze all the north. However, the south, the infrastructure and everything else was still kept pretty intact. And then you have about a year of trench warfare within that region in which the battle lines really didn't move. And finally, Wrecking Crew found that if they try to go for the I-hubs, go for the SOF, trying to go for that, you can kite the time zones more in the US time zone, so the structure bashes won't be as costly. Because if you try to, both sides time zone tank. Pravi is mainly EU, Wrecking Crew mainly US, late US. So you have, if you want to focus on a structure, you probably destroy one structure a week, you're taking losses, and most of the time you're destroying a 1 billion ISK Astra house, and you're suffering horrendous losses in the process. Both sides have done this. Pravi more so because we want to clear our region. We're stubborn. We understand that. And there's no price that we won't pay to ensure the safety and security of our region. Now, with blackout, a large number of people unsubbed. Large number of our neutrals left the region. I think NRDS suffers from blackout more than any other region. I know the whole region suffered under blackout, under the MER, stuff like that, the economic outputs. Everyone didn't make as much ISK, you could say. However, NRDS suffers more because it is imperative, with all these neutrals coming in, we build those relationships, builds bridges. We know who those neutrals are. And so when you see someone in the system, you're like, oh, he's a new guy. Hey, talk to you. Hey, how you doing? Hey, if you need this, you go here. Hey, this is a really good place to mine. Hey, you want to join us with fleet? We build relationships that way. Now, when you cannot build relationships, when you don't know who's in that system, those bridges break down. productivity goes less and less. And those neutrals that come into the region that want to build up, there's, a lot of new bros come to Provi because that's their first step into nullsec. And then when I also do recruitment. I've had a large groups of alliances, neutral alliances, come into Provi, and when that hit them, they unsubbed. And the numbers were hundreds. We lost thousands of neutrals during the PL invasion. We lost a large group of our people during the PL invasion as well. But ultimately, if NRDS is to succeed in nullsec, blackout will be very detrimental, just because it doesn't allow those bridges to be built with neutrals coming in. All right, the culture of Provi. Now, the main holders of Providence. There's a difference between a holder and someone that's just a neutral. And there is also different responsibilities there within. You have APOC, Apocalypse, CVA, Severance, into OP. Excusez-moi. It's a French group which led by Agent Canid. And forgive me if I miss up their name. Je suis désolé, Monsieur Agent Canid. Also Care Factor, COG, and Coalition España, a primarily South American organization of all Spanish speakers. So it is imperative that we work together on the same page with translators, because we have French speakers, we have Russian speakers, we have Swedes, stuff like that. And that's another thing I try to bridge, is being a translator to a lot of different groups. With my background, it flows really quickly with different things. Unfortunately, I don't speak Spanish, so go figure. So a lot of places you go to, anywhere else you go to in Providence, or in the world, in the world of Eve, you go to a region, you have to bend the knee. You have to be an ally. And if you want to go to a region, you might have to pay taxes. And if you don't know who that is, he's a politician in New York. That's his party. The rent is too damn high party. And also, what it is there is, Providence allows anyone to come in. Anyone, you don't have to pay taxes. You have no responsibilities to defend the region. You could come in, build up, and make something of yourself, which you will find no other place in all of nullsec. And for me personally, that's worth fighting for. To allow someone else that has no commitment to me, no responsibilities to me, but could come into this region, build up themselves, and make something of themselves without having to pay a dime. That's what they could do. Now the holders, to be a holder, is the inherent responsibility to protect those guys, to protect the region. That is your responsibility as a holder in Providence. Now, who can join? Anyone can join. We're here to build civilization, to have laws. And to do that, you have to have the protectors, and there's, like they say, there's wolves, there's sheep, and there's sheepdogs. And to be a holder of Providence, you become a paladin warden. And with that, you have the responsibility to protect the weak, and you have the responsibility to protect the other people that want to build up. But there's always people that want to push over to Sandcastle. That's why we're here. Now, for the RP community, the RP community in CVA isn't what it used to be. It is RP light. However, we must always recognize where we come from. We are Amarrian loyalists. What we're doing in Providence is to extend Amarrian law and culture into the Providence region. We've been doing that for many years, over a decade. As we've said, we've stand for 15 years. We'll be here for 15 more. And recently, last year, the Empress finally recognized Providence. Her most sublime, the Imperial Majesty Catus I, in recognition of 14 years of service to Holy Amarr in the Imperial Marshes of Providence, is pleased to order the Curatores Veritatis Alliance be accorded the status of Paladin Wardens of the Providence Marshes in the style of Paladin Warden of Providence, may be used by the Capsuleers of Curatores Veritatis. The rank of Imperial Margrave is accorded to whosoever shall hold the paramount leadership of Curatores Veritatis Alliance. Now, the TLDR of that, what does that mean? The Amarr Empire officially annexed Providence. If you are a holder of Providence, CVA, you become a Paladin Warden. We've extended that to if you are a holder of Providence, you are a Paladin Warden because you are upholding the laws of the Amarr Empire. Now, past wars. Recently, the Amarr Empire went to war in the CVA went to war in Thabika, Sarum Prime, alongside old allies of Lumen, Pi, and this was very important for us. We hadn't declared war in HiSec for over 10 years. But the Imperial, the Empress, requested all our Amarrian loyalists to answer the call and help with Matar terrorists in the Empire. So if we did not do that, we would be compromising what it meant to even be CVA, to be a Paladin Warden, to be an actual holder of Providence, because we honestly answer to the call of the Empress. Now, currently, within the new, this year, recently, there's been some changes in game lore. Now Providence, we fall under House Tashmakan, under our Margrave. Now, our Margrave, EQ, or Equinox Daedalus, he's how it works is or the marshes is an old medieval term for borderlands or border region. A Margrave used to be the warlord for that region. And so that's what how it breaks down, you could say. All right, so why we have never been defeated. Why has Providence always stuck around, despite being wiped from Provi a couple times, despite having horrible losses in multiple battles? I ain't gonna lie, we get hit sometimes. A lot of people come to our area for content. I wake up, I only have to undock to get content. A lot of other people, they have to travel 30 jumps to get content. And that's just the nature of our region. We love our region. It's our home. No other entity in all of EVE can claim that they've been into our region and fought for a region as ardently as our people have. So that's why it's a part of us. When we say, hey, we're Proviblock, hey, it's who we are. And why we fight, we ultimately fight for Amarrian civilization, Amarrian laws, for the Empire, and for each other. Any questions? Oh, come on, Wrecking Crew guys. I know you're itching for something. No, how much time we got? I got 10 minutes? Okay, outstanding. I was trying to speed it up. I didn't want to go over, so I skipped over a lot of things. But yes.
Can you go into a little bit more detail about the war declaration you had in HiSec?
Yes, of course. I apologize for that. The war deck was, I went to Pi and Lumen, and I was like, what do you guys need? And they said, hey, this entity, this entity, this entity, this entity. I went to EQ, I was like, AQ. We have these groups that they were, in the game lore, they were aiding slave rebellions. And Thabika was really bad. And some of their safe havens was Sarum Prime and a Fortizar. So we war decked them, and working alongside Pi and Lumen, we systematically purged the region of the, it was Electus Matari, it was, oh Lord. Arcia, you might help me.
Alexis Matari, PNS, Mizara Diltul, Samara Kerner. And Armas Darker was there earlier with the Ghost of Kaha.
Oh yes, the Ghost of Kaha guys.
Christmas Day badge.
Mm-hmm.
Right? On a stupid writer.
Roger that. All right, thanks Arcia from Pi.
I read helped us too. Don't forget them.
Oh yes, and I read. And I read, they had a war, where we had red status between each group for over 8 years. And that was one thing that we were able to do was we looked at that, and they were old allies. They fought alongside us, covering our fleet. Even though we had red status with them, they actually covered our fleet on a couple ops while we were fighting alongside each other. And after that, we talked to EQ, and we actually unredded a group, which is amazing. We hardly ever unredded anyone. But it was awesome to see that we unredded ceased hostilities with IRED, which is a really good Caldari organization. And moving forward with that, hope to maintain great relations with them. But yeah, a lot of game lore that was put out for it. And so that's another reason why we got involved. Talked to the other holders of Providence. None of them wanted to do it. It was just CVA. So it was a CVA thing, and we could probably field a lot of numbers, but we try to keep it, we didn't blob. We didn't want to blob. So I think the max we ever put out was between 26 and 30 people. And we kept the fights. I think the fights were very amazing. And I think the largest battle in Topeka had over 150 RPers at once fighting. 122?
122. I got the kill blow on this.
All right, 122 RPers. And with the changing of high-sec war decks, I'm very fearful that that won't ever happen again, mainly because it hurts small entities. Because small entities, the RP community is very small, different groups of different ethos and beliefs. And when they are war decked and they want to fight alongside each other, they can't repair each other. It's so bad that I'm fearful that a 122 man or woman, that it couldn't have happened. And it actually hurt the RP community.
Then there were the two pirate groups that attacked both sides during that battle.
Yeah, it was a pretty neat battle.
It was a mess.
Yeah, you had pirate groups fighting, you had Matar loyalists fighting, you had Amarr loyalists fighting.
The angels and
But, yeah.
angels and the hobos.
So it was a very, very fun and interesting fight. How much time do I got? 8 minutes? Ausgezeichnet.
I have a follow-up.
Oh, yes, sir.
So you had said something about
You want to go to the mic and talk? I'll repeat your question so they could hear it.
You recently had some altercations in the Sink-Leisen region. Can you go into detail about what was going on there? And there was subsequently a structure transfer afterwards. I don't know if you're familiar with the I guess it was in the Bascarin system, if you're familiar.
Not too familiar with that.
No?
No,
Okay.
sorry about that.
See, that's why I didn't want the microphone.
Yes, Arcia.
You can mention the cause of the. I guess you can mention the cause of the Becca with the Deathglow attack.
Well, you know what? You guys are subject matter expert on lore that could just dwarf me. So you want to
The
go into
Becca
it?
was part of a storyline that's been going on for ever since the Amarr tournament, pretty much. Where, well, there was this right hand to the King Khanid who picked a Blood Raider as one of the potential Khanid champions in the Amarr tournament, and he was hit by all the Amarr loyalists on the forums, and he kind of went away for a few years until he popped up around Kaha in 2018. And there was a Blood Raider attack on a Khanid planet that all the slaves revolted, and they basically genocided the slaves who were revolting because of the chemical attack that was making them revolt, basically. And then every so often, each one of these planets is connected to an RP Earth. The Becca was connected to Samara Kerner, so everybody who would mouth off to this NPC on the forums, their planet got bombed, right? Like my family's holdings on Dam Torsad was bombed. So the Becca was in a player's backstory. CCP took that, and that was one of the planets that was bombed. And then all the Amarr loyalists fought for it to keep everything in order so the revolt could be put down. And in the Becca, the revolt wasn't put down the same way as the Khanid. It wasn't put down like genocidally. It was as soon as the chemicals wore off, they were trying not to kill people, because it's Arda Shapur territory as opposed to Khanid territory, and Khanid are kind of psychos, right? But the other side was looking to stoke the rebellion.
Yep.
So yeah.
Yeah, that was. I think CVA showed up a little late. I know Aegis Militia was there. They lost. They got kicked out.
Aegis Militia put down an Astor house and then declared war within 15 minutes that it was anchoring, and then lost it before we. That was a thing that happened.
Yep. Poor Aegis Militia. But and even now, speaking of Aegis Militia, they're also now formally pulling out of Providence. They're no longer paying rent to honorable third party to be a part of the Wrecking Crew Coalition. So they're moving out, which is good for me to see because I really dislike shooting Marian loyalists. But I think the Wrecking Crew knows that, so they purposely tried to help recruit them. My Oh, that is true. Okay. Outstanding. Thank you. Because it was literally like a knife right in my back. But I knew you guys did that on purpose. But yeah, that's also part of the conflict with Wrecking Crew. It's back and forth. Oh, I should move on with my slides. I want to say a special thanks to the Provi family who are worth fighting for. Like I said, I'd give my shirt off my back for anyone here in Provi. Also, with Wrecking Crew guys, you guys attest, I'll buy you a drink any time of the day. We are bitter enemies in game. I think it kind of goes too much into toxic. There's a lot of toxic stuff going on between us on both sides. And I would like it for us to actually, despite the video game drama, we actually kind of loosen up the toxicity. We've had players permanently banned for making real life threats, which is never okay. We've had a lot of maybe a play style, but I would like to see less toxicity from this conflict. And it's not cool. It's not enjoyable. I have to step away because it's not who we should be. And I would like a future, if we're going to continue this conflict, I would like to see a conflict with less toxicity between our forces. That's just me personally, to each his own. Always, this brief is going to be in honor of the Empress, Cadus I. And for Provi, we always stand for this. That's for God, Empress, Empire, House Tashmakan, and our Margrave. And I know there's a lot of guys that don't like our Margrave in TRC and Wrecking Crew, but hey, we got his back. And that should be. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Yes, Twilight.
If you could ask for one change from CCG to help with NRDS, what would it be?
Talking with some of the devs, what I would like to see is if they're going to try to implement blackout again, have some type of facility you could put up, player made that you could actually show local, or even more focus on developing the RP communities, even if it doesn't really affect us. I mean, there is a lush and vibrant RP community in the forums that I discovered. I never even knew it existed. And then when I got involved in Thabika, I was like, holy crap, that's amazing. And then I came in contact with some honorable third-party guys that are RPers too. And we go to events together. And I think that there's no specific devs really that are devoted to developing lore, and it's just what they do on the off time. So it's literally a dev that decides to, hey, I want to do extra work with no grandeur to help develop this lore, help develop what's going on in game, because there's a lot of amazing in-game lore that's going on all the time. And like when I went to the Jubilee, the third Jubilee with the Empress, they prayed in our success against the invaders. That was awesome. I was like, wait, you just threw that in there? I was like, hey, that made me happy. But it was it's interesting to see some type of feedback with the lore community. To wrap up, if I could see anything that CCP does, heck, I would love them to answer some tickets. I mean, especially when we lost 4.9 GC and when we were supposed to take it back, a second timer spawned. So they had some some very strange timers. What was that? Was it? Oh, he wasn't there for that. Yeah, yeah. William was. Yeah, we actually claimed it. We should have got our SOV back, or we should have kept our SOV. But we ended up losing the SOV because it spawned a second timer. So we had 95% and 65% of two timers, and as we were hitting the other timers, we were doing the other one, and then the other one just slowly ticked down, and we lost it. Or that same fight, the entire Wrecking Crew fleet never actually loaded on grid, and so we couldn't target them. And so we have a lot of abnormalities, not admiral, excuse me, I misspoke. A lot of strange things that happens to the region, and the tickers just left go because I think honestly the devs know that we're good content. We always fight. We will always fight for our region. Even if we lose a system, we're going to still be there. So they just let it go. So if I could change anything, it would be maybe some devs that try to kind of work out some tickers, or not tickers, but try to work out some in-game issues with stuff like that spawning, which is disheartening to see, if anything. But, all right, to wrap it up, thank you all for showing up. And as always, Amarr Victor.